Hello, this is Sir Theist. I'm now going to respond to philos71's second logical fallacy, basically, who created God. In his rebuttal of this, he makes several assumptions, and I'm going to go through them, and sometime I think atheists should listen to this too, because it's very important. The first assumption he makes is that everything that began needs a cause. Now, first of all, that's strictly speaking true only for macroscopic objects. For example, if a vase fell from the table to the floor, there must have been something that caused it to fall onto the floor. For example, your hand pushing it. However, in the microscopic world, and we know this, we know that this causal relationship holds because you've never ever seen pieces of vase assembled together spontaneously, jump back onto the table and hit your hand. However, in the microscopic world, every single natural law is reversible. What does that mean? That means if you took an event, let's say A happened, then B, and you played it backwards, you wouldn't be able to tell which one actually happened. In other words, in such an environment where there is really no basis to conclude whether A caused B or B caused A, physicists don't talk about causes. They talk about natural laws. And by the way, I don't even want to hear about Aristotle and his theories of causes. Anything Aristotle did with respect to physics is complete bunk, completely discredited. For example, Aristotle thought that uniform motion of objects needed a cause, a mover, so to speak, which is how he concluded the existence of a prime mover. However, we now know that's not the case. In fact, the natural state of an object is to move at a constant velocity where nothing is interfering with it. Why does that not happen on the ground? Friction, but this is a completely different story. Second objection. Things do happen in this universe without apparent cause. For example, you have these matter-antimatter particles just popping into existence spontaneously throughout this universe and then quickly annihilating. Nothing apparently caused them. And how do we know this happens? Well, if it happens near a black hole may swallow one of these two particles, and the second one then has no one to annihilate with and simply escapes. In fact, taking some of the black hole's mass actually with it. This phenomenon is known as black hole evaporation, and we know it happens. Stephen Hawking is, by the way, credited for this discovery, theoretical discovery. Second, radioactive decays. They are, in essence, a completely random effect. If you take 100 atoms and watch them within a half-life of the decay of that atom, 50 of them will decay. But you will not be able to tell in any way, shape, or form before this experiment started exactly which of the 50 atoms would decay. This is a completely random, uncaused event. Third objection. Things can actually happen before their cause in this universe. Yes, you heard me correctly. Let's look at the most famous experiment in quantum mechanics. Essentially, in quantum mechanics, you have wave-particle duality, meaning that particles can essentially behave like waves as well. So if you take an electron, pass it through a double slit. Take a bunch of electrons, pass them through a double slit, the electrons will interfere like waves and you will get a standard interference pattern of fringes. What's the most amazing part? You can do this with only one electron at a time. Put one electron through the system, record its presence, then the second one, record its presence, and after several hundred electrons, you will see an interference pattern forming. How? We don't know. The electron basically interferes with itself. Even more interesting, if you try to observe an electron at any of the two holes, the interference pattern is completely lost. Even more interesting, you can make a decision whether to observe the electron or not just before it comes into the apparatus, and we can do this experiment with electrons or photons, let's say photons, traveling from a different galaxy. In other words, your decision now has affected the travel of the photon for the last millions of light years. In essence, the photon, when it's emitted, knows exactly what is awaiting it. And our decision causes retroactively the motion of the photon. Now, one might ask, well, can't we predict the future in that case? And the answer is no. Quantum mechanical uncertainty prevents us from that. To get any information from that photon, we would have to look at it. To look at it, we would have to disrupt it. So in essence, in this world, it really is the case that sometimes events can precede their cause. Now, I don't have much time, so I'm also going to say one more thing about a very concept of time. Now, let's imagine, how do most people think of time? Well, they have this one line, and then you have like this arrow which is like moving left to right. But is that a valid view of time? No, it's not. For the simple reason that, let's try speeding this arrow up and slowing it down, speeding it up, slowing it down. To our outside view, that would be a pretty crazy universe. You'd have people going fast and slow, fast, slow. To the people inside the universe, nothing changes. If they saw such an event, they would comment it in their research papers, but we already have the research papers. They are exactly the same as ours. Since the content of any single moment hasn't changed, neither has their perception of time. Let's imagine another experiment. Let's shuffle all the moments in time up. Again, you'd see a very crazy universe. Again, people inside that universe would not notice. So this arrow thing is a complete illusion. Doesn't exist. The only thing that exists are moments of time existing in a timeless sense. Never created, never destroyed. So no single moment of time, universe within a moment of time, needs a creator because it was never created in the first place. Just like a jigsaw puzzle. And that is how we can also have the beginning of time. To postulate a beginning of time is no more controversial than having the rightmost side on a jigsaw puzzle. So atheists, we don't know yet if the Big Bang was the first moment or there was something before. We don't know whether this is the only universe or there are more universes than that. None of these things are relevant for atheists as far as conclusions go. So that is the truth about the universe. It exists in a timeless sense, and it's governed by very simple laws that don't require any deities. No more than the system of natural numbers requires a mathematics god that will always make sure that 2 + 2 = 4. And our universe is very simple. We're all just a bunch of 3 different particles. Up quark, down quark, electron. Okay. So finally, even if we assume there was a cause, there would be no reason to think that cause was intelligent. For example, a vase can be knocked down by a hand or wind. The universe could be created by collision of 2 brains or a hyperdimensional animal pooping out little universes. So basically, all of your discussion was utterly irrelevant. Not to mention postulating that God does not need a cause. That was basically your debunking of atheists' argument. Just postulating just like that. Even if God did not need a cause, it sure as hell needs a lot of explanation. Okay, thank you.